talked about how to evaluate before the interview, how to communicate during the interview. But one thing that I didn't get to mention is some of the specific questions you might be asked. So one of the first common questions to kick off the interview is, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Sometimes that question can be very difficult. It's like being thrown in the middle of the ocean. Like, where do I swim? Where do I start? I was in diapers, and then what happens? Like, no, wait, too much information. So you want to give them a little highlight. Think of it almost like a helicopter shot of your journey to this point. So when they ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself, it's almost tell me a little bit about yourself as an individual, and tell me a little bit about yourself as to what led you to this scholarship or this program. So for example, my name is Emilio Lorenzo. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. People really describe me as a friendly, engaging individual. A little bit on my background, I went to high school here in Miami, and during my whole time, I was very involved in clubs, groups, sports, and really giving back to my community in the healthcare setting. Thinking back, this was almost the beginning of my passion for healthcare and getting involved in working with individuals and making a difference in their lives. Throughout that time, I really started discovering, wow, medicine is my passion. And so throughout those summers and those experiences, I built myself up to be ready for a career in that. Now I'm here, I'm ready for this next step, and I'm looking for a university that aligns with those same career goals. And after reviewing this program, I thought it would be the ideal fit and really giving me everything I need to have an edge in my career. Some other questions that could come up is, tell me about why you're interested in NSU. What are some of the experiences that have led you to this point? All of these things can be answered with the practice that we talked about early. Storytelling, giving examples, connecting the dots. Don't worry if you get stuck. That's okay. I mentioned they're not checking to see if you're nervous or not. They just want to make sure, are you giving them the details that they can help evaluate your fit? Now, I did want to talk about one specific question that usually people struggle with, strengths and weaknesses. When you get asked your strengths and weaknesses, don't just say them strengths and then you're out. So you don't say, what are my strengths? I'm a leader, I'm a good communicator, and I'm friendly. No. You want to back up each strength with an example. So if you say, I'm a leader, back it up with a direct experience. If you say you're a problem solver, maybe pull from an experience. Maybe that time in your book club when things didn't go right, how did you use conflict resolution skills to solve that? Going from theory to practice. Now from weaknesses, you don't want to say something like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I don't really have weaknesses. The whole purpose of learning a weakness is to figure out that you can self-identify things that you need to work on and then take steps to work on it. Colleges is going to be filled with experiences that don't go right. It's okay to trip in college, but you're not going to be defined by tripping. You're going to be defined by how you pick yourself up for it. So think about an experience or things that you've worked on that are considered a weakness. Earlier I mentioned public speaking. That's a fine weakness, but following it up with direct examples on how you've worked on it. For example, one of my shortcomings or weaknesses is public speaking. Sometimes I get a little nervous in front of big crowds and a lot of individuals, and so I've had to work on that weaknesses. For example, I joined a speech class my junior year of high school. I also started practicing more with my friends, getting in front of large audiences, working on my communication skills. And although it's not one of my strengths, I've become much more comfortable getting in front of large groups. And for our science presentation at the end of our senior year, I actually felt comfortable enough to present to our whole senior class, and I felt that I did a really good job, and I felt very proud of myself. See what I did there? I didn't just say a weakness and left it there. I gave you direct examples on how I'm working on it. And so now I want you to actually work on some of these things. So we're going to take some time. I want you to partner up, whether you're with your family member, a friend, someone, and go through some of these questions. Tell me about yourself. Why NSU? Why this program? How have your experiences prepared you for this scholarship or this opportunity? The strengths and weaknesses question. And what separates you from other candidates? And I know sometimes people struggle with what separates you. Like, you can't compare yourself to others. But what you can do is summarize all the things you've mentioned so far. Usually a question like that happens at the end of the interview. So provide some summary points on what makes you a good fit. What are the things that made your candidacy so strong? So again, going to take some time. I want you to partner up and take some time to really practice these skill sets, listening for those key elements, storytelling, examples, passion, and the person next to them, don't let them off the hook. Give them some great feedback as they're going through these practices. All right, welcome back. I see some great answers and great things you guys worked on. I love that excitement. That was actually a really good example I heard from someone else in the room. And so I want you to take that and evaluate yourself. The thing about interviews is it's a constant growth, constant practice. And you need to constantly work on that. You need to constantly get feedback from others. So don't just go in there and say, I'm just going to wing it. You need to go in there and take the time to really get practice with others. And so you did a great job already kind of getting that mock interview with other individuals.